Imagine the most brutal Daemon Prince of Khorne trampling across the battlefield, collecting skulls with intense efficiency. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the Crimson Stampede, my most challenging conversion project yet. So let's get building. This Daemon Prince of Khorne is going to have 8 limbs, 4 arms, and 4 legs. His base is going to be completely covered in skulls. He needs to have really dynamic posing. I don't want a model that's just going to stand still on his base. And just a personal challenge for me, I'm not going to use any green stuff to fill gaps or to sculpt parts of the model. Let's talk about the parts that I'm going to be using for this project. For the foundation, the majority of this model, I'm going to be using the Centaur Marshal from Warcry. In terms of pricing, is about half the price of a Daemon Prince, so it's a pretty great base model to start with. It's just about as large, and it's already Chaos themed, so I don't have to worry about doing all of that extra work to make it look that way. I recently built the World Eater's Lord on Juggernaut, and what I found is regardless of how you build it, you always end up with a full extra set of Juggernaut legs. That's going to be perfect for this project. I'm also going to be just dipping into my bits box for a whole bunch of other stuff, weapons from the World Eaters, maybe some extra corny bits and spikes or whatever else I can find, maybe some plating pieces, and of course, skulls. Since the base is going to be loaded with skulls, I'm going to be dipping into my box of Citadel skulls for this. To get started, I am going to be building up the Centaur Marshal. I'm not going to be gluing it or cleaning it up. I just need to get a sense of what this model looks like, what the scale of the model is. And this is going to allow me to compare it to the actual Daemon Prince to make sure that I'm getting roughly the right size. Now, I'm going to be facing a ton of challenges in this project. One of the biggest ones is going to be swapping the legs on the Centaur to use the World Eater's Juggernaut legs instead. I'm going to have to measure a lot, and I'm also going to have to cut a lot. The Juggernaut legs are kind of the perfect scale. It looks like some of the areas really look similar. On top of that, some of the poses are almost the same too, so I really lucked out combining these two kits together. I'm going to spend a lot of time adding and removing the legs, just dry fitting them to get a sense of what I need to do. This is going to take quite a bit of time for me to figure out, and before I make any cuts or any decisions, I'm just going to play around with the model and see what works. While I was looking around, I did notice that this hydraulic piston part lines up really well with some of these side muscles. They look almost like they're the exact same part, just one's mechanical. I really want to focus on incorporating this, and I'm going to see if it makes the final model look better by having these areas naturally line up. I know that I want the front legs raised up, but I'm not really sure how high they're going to go up yet, or if both of them are going to be in the air and one of them's going to be resting on something. And in terms of the weapons for this Daemon Prince, I'm going to be dipping into my World Eater's box. I'm going to be looking for different types of weapons to put in his 4 different hands. So let's get started with the front legs. I am noticing already that there is this curve that lines up really well between the inner portion of the Juggernaut legs and the side of the Centaur's body. But obviously this lower portion of the leg isn't going to work. It's going to get in the way, so I'm going to have to cut those right off. I'm starting to get this like Jax from Mortal Kombat feel, which is great. It really ties into some of the other themes of this model. We have a lot of 4-armed characters in Mortal Kombat. We've also got Motaro, hilariously from the old movie, who's got that Centaur body as well. So really a lot of Mortal Kombat aesthetic going into this. I'm going to be doing round after round of kind of cutting and fitting this model just to make sure that the parts feel natural where they're supposed to go before I put any glue on. So I'm going to be using some dry tack along the way, and I'm just going to keep trying to fit this model and cut parts down. And once I feel like I've gotten a good amount of connection between that inner leg of the Juggernaut and the side of the body, I can start the long process of posing this model. It's really important for me to figure out how high up these legs might be going. The position of those front legs is really going to dictate where the hind legs need to go. While I was doing this, I did end up making some pretty rough cuts and leaving some pretty open gaps in the model. So I'm definitely going to have to figure out how to cover these up down the road. So let's get started on these hind legs now, because I'm going to fix them down into the base using some tack just to get some stability. I think a lot of the back of this torso needs to be cut off, so I'm just going to clip some of that away and look for the right amount to keep. Again, I'm trying to get this hydraulic piston really lined up with the side of that leg. So I'm going to make a ton of cuts and really figure out what's going to be the best way for me to fit that on there. I've left this big opening on the rear portion of the model. So I'm going to dig around in my bits box. I'm going to look for any sort of armor plating that I can use to cover. And what I did end up finding was from the Chaos Knights kit, I had this leftover piece from not building one of the variants. I'm probably going to have to cut this thing down a bit, but I'm not going to worry about that now. Now I'm gonna try to dry fit all 4 legs in place using tack. I spent upwards of maybe 6 hours off camera trying to figure this out, so you didn't have to watch that whole process, but it was definitely pretty tough. I spent a lot of time trying to find the right pose, and you know, until I'm ready to start gluing, it's all kind of just been in flux. During the process, I did start to add a variety of different objects to the base to play with height under the feet. Trying to find, again, a very natural looking pose, seeing if there's something that needs to go under that front right hoof. What really helped me through this portion was taking just a big mass of tack and kind of like building the model around that. So I kind of stuck the leg pistons into there. I fit the rest of the torso over like a glove or like a sock. And I started to fit that armor plate in to make sure that all of it would fit together nicely. For that rear plate, I did just keep adding on more tack to find the right fit, but I'll probably have to cut this down really soon. The front legs went on really easy for now. There's not really a ton of connecting points, so I could just really tack those on and try a whole bunch of different objects to put under that front right hoof. I really like the front plate that comes with the Centaur martial, but unfortunately the sides of it won't fit with the Juggernaut legs. They go really high up. So what I'm gonna have to do is just cut these side pieces off of the front armor. I'm gonna use my clippers to do that and just clean it up. There's gonna be some rough edges here. I'm gonna have to come back later and find something to cover that with too. Now let's start talking about the hooves. Now, the angle of these ankles are just no good. They're not gonna work for me. You can see as I try to line it up on the base, they definitely need a different angle in order to get those legs raised up higher. I'm gonna cut along the tops of the hooves really flush. I'm gonna use maybe my saw, my knife, or some clippers, whatever I can use to get them off of there. And I'm just gonna trim that nub down that's left over from the rest of the leg. The front hooves have these kind of like basing features on there, little bits of rock because they are supposed to be flat down on the base. I'm just gonna cut those off. I'm actually gonna pin the hooves on the hind legs so that I'll get a bit of rotation and a bit of flexion to help me find that angle. So I'm just gonna use my pin vise. I'm gonna drill into the leg a little bit and I'm gonna drill directly into the hoof. I'm gonna use a bit of paper clip in order to attach those. And again, this is giving me just a bit of rotation, and I can also move the hoof up and down, which is gonna help me find that good position and keep it locked in place. And with that, I can actually raise the model pretty high up and maybe find that final resting place of where that front right hoof is supposed to go. I'm getting really close to being able to glue this model down now. I just need to make a final decision on where those hind hooves are gonna go, given all of the information about the poses that I've collected so far while playing around with this model. It's time for me to cut that rear plate down before I cover the rear portion of the model. I'm gonna tack everything in one more time just to make sure I know where it all goes. I'm gonna slide the hind leg pistons into these openings that I have between the plate and the remaining bit of that lower torso. Really gonna try to line up the inner portions of that thigh with the sides of the torso there. And I'm gonna get these pinned legs ready, though I'm not gonna be gluing them in any way soon. I just wanna be able to tell where they go on the base in their final position. And with that, I'm gonna tack these hooves right down onto the base and get ready to start gluing. I'm gonna leave the hooves attached to the base, and I'm gonna slowly remove the rest of the model so that I can start to glue them in place but not lose the positioning where they're supposed to go on the base itself. I'm pretty much gonna follow the previous steps, but this time without the tack. So I'm gonna get that rear armor plate in place. I'm gonna glue it down. I'm gonna look for a few reinforcement points to make sure that it stays in place. Then I'm gonna take the legs again. I'm gonna slide the pistons into these sockets that have been formed on the side of the torso through all of my cutting. And again, I'm going to reinforce with some glue in that area and along the inner portion of the thigh. Plastic glue doesn't necessarily set right away like super glue, so I've got a bit of working time to move these around on the model. So again, I'm not gluing the hooves in place yet. I'm gonna quickly move on to the weapons of this model and just specifically the upper portion, everything above the waist. I really like the way this looks already. I don't think I need to change too much. The torso looks great. I love the helmet with the crazy horns and the hair. I think all of that is just so dynamic. A lot of great curves. So I want to keep most of that the same, but I am going to be swapping out some of the weapons here. The hand that has the net, I'm definitely going to keep that. I really like how unique the net looks. It's a very uncommon thing to see in the world of Warhammer, a pattern like that. So I think it's a very striking feature that I'm going to be keeping for this model. But the other 3 hands, I am going to be replacing all of the weapons using some bits from my other World Eaters models. Unfortunately, there is a problem with the scale here. The hands of the Centaur Marshal are way bigger than a World Eater hand, a Berserker hand at least. I think I've decided to use the 8-bound weapons because I think those are the same size, but unfortunately, the scale of that is also wrong too. I am going to have to cut the weapons pretty much underneath their handle so that I can attach them to the handle that the hand is currently holding. I'd rather cut at the wrist. That would give me a lot more stability once I glue things in place, but that's just not going to be the case here. I might even have to pin some of these in place. So I'm just going to make those cuts now, and I'm going to start with our axe. The axe actually has the smallest or the thinnest handle. That means I won't be able to pin it. It's just a little bit too thin. I didn't want to risk it. So for this one, I'm just going to glue it in place. I'm going to pray it doesn't go anywhere. For the chain swords that I'm going to be using, I did my best to cut both sides at a slightly thicker point. That would give me a little more availability for my pin vise. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to pin these two using I think it's a 0.8. The paper clip that I use, I'm just gonna strip some of the plastic off with my pliers so that it's able to fit in that hole. So I'm gonna pin this normally. I'm just gonna drill through, cut the clip, and glue it all together. I might even reinforce some of the areas to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere, make sure it's all lined up, and it's good to go. We'll let that dry and set. With the weapons in place, I'm ready to glue the hands in place as well. So I'm just gonna attach each of the hands at the wrist point. Let's start planning how this skull base is gonna work. I've never really done a base that's just completely covered in skulls. I have this trick I'm trying out here. What I'm gonna do is flip the base over so that it makes kind of like a skull cup. I'm gonna put in a couple of my larger basing pieces, so these rocks, and then I'm just gonna start dumping in skulls. This is gonna help me get a rough estimate of how many skulls I need to cover this particular base. Just gonna make my life a lot easier. I'm gonna add a couple of extra, make sure they're spread out. And then I ended up just spending an evening while watching something else, cleaning up these skulls, and I felt very confident once I was ready to start putting things in place that I would have enough. I'm trying something new here for this base. I didn't just want to cut up skulls and lay them flat on the base. I wanted to start using an epoxy sculpt to fit the skulls into. So this is the first time I'm using something like this. As I mentioned, I'm not actually using any putty or clay to like sculpt parts of the model. I'm just using it here again as a layer to kind of press my basing material into. So I'm gonna mix this stuff up. It comes in 2 parts. I'm gonna spread it out all over the base. And the first thing I need to do is make sure that the legs go to their correct positions now that the putty's on there. So I'm gonna get the legs ready, the hooves in place, and I'm gonna make sure that the rock that the hoof is standing on, I've got it tacked on there because that's the part that's actually gonna be sticking into the putty. And then I'm gonna take the model and I'm just gonna gently squish it in place. Once I'm confident with where the legs, the feet are, I can then remove the model and I know exactly where skulls need to go and where they don't need to go. Now it's time to start pressing these skulls into the base. I've got about 100 skulls here, so it is gonna take a bit of time. I'm gonna press them deep into the putty. I'm also gonna be using some bigger skulls for just a bit of variety and to take up more surface area so I don't end up using as many. I did finally decide what's gonna go under that front right hoof. It's gonna be a tactical skull. It's the biggest skull that comes in the Citadel Skulls box. It did end up being almost the perfect height to go under that hoof, but I will have to make a bit of a modification here. Now I am going to take this opportunity not only to get that big tactical skull in the position it's supposed to be. I might have to put the model back on to do this. I'm also going to add a few extra rock landscaping pieces around the sides of the skull to make it look more natural. And then from there, it's just more skulls. I got to add more skulls. It's definitely going to need some more skulls and probably a few more skulls. I'm ready to attach the model to the base permanently. So I'm gonna get some glue on these pins. I'm gonna get super glue on the front foot that will sit on the resin landscaping rock. I'm gonna quickly get everything into place and I'm gonna let the model dry. I need to start addressing some of these really rough areas that I've left. Particularly on the front of the model, I've left a pretty big opening. I've also got a big opening in the front left leg portion. and around the waist of the model. And so along with the front portion of the model, I'll also be figuring out where the front legs and hooves will end up going. So I'm just gonna fully remove all of the tack here. You can actually see that the model's pretty sturdy. I can actually pick it up and like turn it upside down. So it's nice, it's on there. Everything is looking good so far. I'm gonna be dipping into another kit. It is the Necromunda Corpse Grinder kit. There are all of these tiny little, I call them like thorny rib plates almost. I've been wanting to use these on a project for a long time, haven't found the right place. I think they're gonna be perfect here. So I'm gonna start with that front left leg. I think if I put one of these just lined up at a particular angle, it'll make it look kind of like a muscle almost, but it still has that mechanical aspect to it. Still got a bit of spikiness on there, so I think it's gonna look good to fill that particular gap. I've got some of this weird chaos tubing stuff. I think it's from like the Forge Fiend or whatever model. I'm gonna cut that in half, and I'm just gonna try to slide that into that big opening gap that's in that front right shoulder. This looks kind of weird, but it fits. I like the way that these shapes complement these gaps. It's not that they're perfect fits, but I think with a bit of super glue and maybe a few extra things to obscure that, they will end up looking very good like this. So the tactical skull, it's got these bumpy ridges on the top of it, and that means that the hoof is not sitting flat. So the first thing I'm gonna do is try to shave that tactical skull down a little bit to see if it fits better. This still wasn't working for me though. The hoof is still not at the right angle. So again, I'm just gonna quickly get this thing ready with a pin. So I have a bit of rotation available to find the right angle for it to be sitting flush with that skull. Before I actually glue these front right hooves in place, I need to get the upper body in place. As I mentioned, the front legs go really, really high. So I'm worried about that net or any other part up here actually interfering with where I've decided to glue these legs. So to avoid that, let's get that upper body in place, glue it down, and also that front plate as well. We're gonna glue that in place now too. Let's get the front left leg glued in place. This one's easy, it's not really connected to anything. I've decided on an angle. I'm just gonna glue that thing in and make sure that that gap filler kind of muscle piece I've put in place actually sits in the right spot. For the other leg, I need to glue a couple of things here. So I'm gonna add some plastic glue to the pinned ankle, the bottom of the hoof, as well as the inner portion of the leg. And I'm gonna glue all of those together in place, attached to the skull and to the rest of the body, and let that set in a nice position. I've got a few extra details here, just kind of nice small things to finish up the model. Juggernauts tend to have pretty small tails. I have Lord Invocatus built up recently, and all of my other Juggernauts, really small tails. I did want something a little bigger here. The tail that comes with the Centaur Marshal is unfortunately just too big. Instead, I'm gonna borrow a piece from my Forge Fiend kit again. If you built the Forge Fiend kit, you probably have an extra Mauler Fiend head. And on there, there's a tongue piece that I'm gonna cut off. I think this really does give it that mechanical tail feel, and it's kind of in between. It's not as small as regular Juggernauts. What's nice is where I connected the rear plate to the torso, I've kind of left this socketed opening. So this tail is gonna fit perfectly in there. It's like it was all just meant to be. I'm gonna use more of those thorny plate rib pieces on the waist portions. I'm gonna use it just to hide some of the rougher edges between where the waist is and that upper leg. This turned out so good. I love the way this looks. I think the shape and the way it covers the pieces is just perfect. I can't wait to find more places to use these bits because you do get quite a few of them in the kit. We're almost done here. I've got this like set of chains from the Chaos Knight kit. I'm gonna cut these into individual strands, and I'm gonna look for little like nooks or areas in the front portion of the model to fit these into and glue them down. I might even chop some of these chains up to smaller pieces and fit them in some of the gaps and areas. I've got a couple of little Khorne medallions. I think I got them from some Age of Sigmar kits. I'm gonna toss one on the base. There's like this empty strap that runs along the chest of the torso. So I'm gonna throw the little one on there. And along the back of the belt, I'm just gonna finish up by gluing a couple skulls on there, almost like as he's riding along the battlefield or galloping along the battlefield. He's probably, taking his favorite skulls and just keeping them right on his belt for later. I'm gonna be skipping the painting portion of this video just to keep it shorter. If you are interested in seeing me paint my projects more often, please do let me know in the comment section below. While you're down there, if you wanna subscribe to my channel, that'd be great. Maybe give this video a like too. But for now, let's see how this model turned out. I'm gonna be honest, I think this is the best conversion I've ever done. It feels like something Games Workshop would actually sell. And considering I met my challenge of not actually using any gap filler or anything like that on the model, I feel very successful. I feel very proud of what I've built here. He's gonna be a menace on the battlefield in my Crusade games, and I am working on a much larger World Eater's army. It's not very heavily converted. This might be one of the most converted pieces, but I'm really excited to have him leading that force sometime soon. All right, that's gonna be it for this project. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you all again. Take care, have a great day, bye.